Welcome to Unsettle Yourself. This is a series that's really all about taking an assessment of where you're at. At the heart of unsettling, it's really about assessing every moment that you have and exactly where you're at each moment. And so today it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a special episode where I want to talk about the connection that we have with our mind, body, and spirit. Because I want to really address where your assessment and where your thinking actually comes from, and whether or not it's deeply rooted in the mind, in the body, or in the spirit. And when I say the spirit, it's really from your heart. Your spirit is from your heart. And you know that it's from the spirit because things don't necessarily seem very rational, but they feel very right. And usually that's what happens when it comes from the spirit. So I want to talk a little bit about all three of them. So first, let's talk about the mind. And a lot of decision making, a lot of thinking happens in the mind, but that doesn't actually mean that's where all of your decisions need to be made. Because you're getting cues and you're getting information from all three at every given point in time. So, if you're really relying solely on the mind, you're missing out on a lot of information that your body and your spirit are telling you at all times. And something that I wanted to pose to you is the question of where are you getting most of your thinking from? Where are you getting most of your information from? So, is it mostly from your mind? Is it mostly from your body? Or is it mostly from your spirit? Now, there isn't a right answer, it's just where you're at right now. Having most of your information come from your mind is not better than having most of your information come from your body, and the same with your spirit. They all are valid, and it really just depends on you and who you are. So I want to make that clear. There's not one right way, it's just taking an assessment of which one is happening for you and which one you are noticing the most. Because I really want to talk about how each of them connect to each other. So I'll use the first example through the body and listening to your body to get cues on things that you should do in the sense of your body's telling it to you, not in the sense of the world is telling you should do something, and actually listening to your body. So the other question becomes, how can you hear what your body is telling you? And the thing that I notice the most for myself and for those around me as well is that when you fill your body with nourishment, your body is able to tell you a lot more, and you're actually able to hear it a lot more too. So that's the caveat to, not taking in toxins or what I would call like processed food and alcohol on a, let's say, majority of the basis. So if you're mostly eating clean ingredients, I'll call it clean ingredients, meaning foods from the earth, instead of processed, boxed, packaged, all of those things, for the most part, so we'll say majority, so over 50%, then it's a lot easier for you to hear what your body is telling you and whether or not you listen to it. So if your body is constantly telling you, I need energy or I'm tired, do you hear that and do you give it what it needs, or do you ignore it and use your thinking mind saying that I need to continue to work harder because of this, and this? So that's kind of the example I wanted to use for the physical, because your body's constantly telling you things, whether it's, there's an ache or a pain somewhere, whether you're hungry or you're actually thirsty, and really getting to understand the language that your body is speaking, because it speaks to you in a very different way. So, for instance, knowing the difference between being hungry and being thirsty, it's a very fine line. And I think all of us, I definitely do this also. I think to myself, oh, I'm really hungry, but really, if I pause, I think about it, I know that I haven't had enough water. And then as soon as I drink water, I'm no longer what I thought I was, which was hungry. I was actually just thirsty, and now my body is nourished and fulfilled and feels really great all of a sudden. So it's the same thing if it's telling you it has aches or pains, or if it's tired, or if, certain times of the day things are happening. If you're constantly getting tired, around noon, there are things happening within your body, and it's really important to try to listen to what's happening. Now, the same goes for your spirit, and that's your heart, and what's happening with your heart and what it's trying to tell you. So, when you have these really big emotions and you're reacting to certain things that are happening, it's really important to see where that's coming from. That's really something deeply rooted in your heart rather than your mind or even your body, and it's trying to tell you to pay attention to this thing. What's happening? To ask questions. That's the most important thing. Ask yourself these questions, and they're only for you. They're not for anybody else. They're never questions for somebody else to ask or to answer. They're always for you to listen and then to really hear, right? And again, it's your interpretation. It's your language that your body, that your spirit, that your mind is speaking to you for you to understand. So, for instance, for the heart, for something like when you keep getting the message or you keep getting this feeling, right? It's really a feeling that you should quit your job because every time you go into work, you're miserable. Every time you think about going into work, your gut reaction is no, I don't want to do this. Your heart is telling you something. It's your spirit saying that you're crushing me every time you go here. Can we do better? Can we do different so that that's not the case every single day, day in and day out? It's the same if you're in a relationship and every time you see this person, you poke and you prod and you resent and you have all these negative feelings towards this person, and yet you're still with them. That's your heart telling you to reassess what's going on here. Why are you constantly acting this way? Why do you feel this way? And it's to listen to that, to again, ask yourself these questions. Why am I feeling this way? Why is this telling me this? Why do I have these feelings that are popping up? And to really address those. And then when it comes to the mind, there are so many things happening. There's so much programming that we have from our past. And if you're younger, there's less programming. And if you're older, there's a lot more programming to work through. And it's all based on our own experiences, and our programming is all different. So I can't say that there's one thing that we all need to work on, except maybe that we all need to just question things constantly and consistently, from the media and from what people are telling us, and question where the sources are from, and just question what's actually happening. So we have this logical mind based on our experiences of what we think is logical to us personally and what we think makes sense. And it's also based on what our values are, and we don't necessarily name those enough to know what our values are, truly, because a lot of the times we've adopted the values of society. So we value money over a lot of other things. And in our current situation, we see how that's actually having a negative effect on us when we're trying to save the world, essentially. So if we resort back to valuing kindness and joy and happiness and courage, we start to see a shift again. And that's kind of what's happening right now. We're seeing more of the kindness. We're seeing more of the courage. We're seeing that money isn't everything. That health is starting to take a higher priority over money. And everything is shifting, and our mind is trying to make sense of all of this stuff also, and trying to create logic within all of these things. So what is your mind telling you right now as we're going through this major shift and this major transition as a planet, from valuing money over everything to now really shifting to valuing health over pretty much everything else. It's not necessarily totally the case yet, but that seems to be where things are headed. So the important thing here is to see, where is all of this information coming from? Where are these values coming from, and how are they shifting? How am I making these really important decisions? And am I taking all of these things into consideration? So when it comes to really big decisions, if you check in with your mind first or last, it doesn't actually matter what order you go in, but if you check in with your mind and your body, because your body will react actually to any of these decisions that you make. If you're leaning towards yes, your body will have a reaction to that. And if you're leaning towards no, towards something, your body will have a reaction to that too. And really, again, listening to what that is. And your heart will also, because you'll get this really, really intense feeling of yes or no. If I say yes to this, is going to feel really bad. It could be as simple as understanding whether or not this feels good or this feels bad. If it feels really good to do something, then you know it's from the heart. It's going to happen. And your logical mind and your physical body and your heart and your spirit, they're all working together and trying to align together so that you're making the best decisions for you, not necessarily for every other person and what's best for everyone else, but really for you, because that's what matters first. If it's not good for you, it's not necessarily going to be good for the world either. So getting an understanding of how all three of these things talk to you, how your mind, how your spirit, and how your body talk to you, and understanding the translation is really important, especially right now as things have changed so much and how our daily lives are shifting on a regular, consistent basis. Like, we're taking it day by day and there are constant changes happening over and over and over. But if you understand how all three of these components work together for yourself, then you can adapt to the change as much as possible with as little, discomfort, with as little resistance, and see where you need to move with it. So it's not that you have to adapt all of the sudden to all of these changes, but that you can see where your best foot forward is going to be placed as these changes happen. Because you're not necessarily going to create those changes. They're going to come whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. I would prefer that, we don't have to shift this quickly, because I know this isn't easy for anyone. But since we're in this case, I wanted to give you something that hopefully helps you as we go through these changes and as these decisions have to continuously be made on what we're going to do next individually, and how to listen to that within your own self, rather than fully relying on everyone else around you and what everyone else is doing, because what everyone else is doing may not actually be best for you. So take into consideration these three things, and if you need to start with one, just start with one. I don't believe that one is more valuable than the other, so if you need to start with your mind, start with your mind. If you need to start with your body, start with your body. If you need to start with your heart, then start with your heart. But I do believe that once you start with one of them, that they will all continuously start to align and they'll start to connect more to each other. So as long as you do start with any of them and really start paying attention and start assessing and really start listening, then I think it's really possible for you to start to align all three of them so that they start to talk to each other. And it's really amazing when they do. It's probably one of the best feelings in the world. I am working towards having that on a consistent basis myself. They come and go, and it really just, I haven't figured out my own strategy for that just yet, for it to be completely consistent. But when they're truly aligned, when your mind, your heart, and your body are truly aligned, then it feels really amazing. You feel like there is nothing you can't conquer, and that you have all of the answers all of the time. So, in this special episode, I wanted to give you something hopefully that you can use going forward. If you have any questions, please let me know. I personally, I'll let you know that I started with the physical body. I cleaned up the way that I was eating. I stopped eating processed foods, and within, I want to say, 2 weeks, so many things shifted and happened. I really could hear so loudly what my body was telling me. I knew when it wanted greens. I knew when it wanted carbs. I knew when it wanted water. It was really easy to hear all of the sudden what it needed from me. And I could answer back right away with, okay, let's get you some greens, let's get you some water, let's nourish you the way that you need to be nourished, so that I could feel the best. And I had the most energy right after that. I felt just amazing. I felt so much lighter, and I didn't feel weighed down by all of this extra stuff. It felt like. And then it shifted, and it started there, and then it kept going, with my heart and then with my mind. So that was my trajectory, but it doesn't have to necessarily be yours. So I wanted to share that just as an example, because sometimes it'll start with your heart, and for me, that's actually the hardest one to start with. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But yes, if you have any questions, please reach out. If you're struggling through any of this, please reach out. I have free 30-minute coaching calls where we can talk through this. We can talk through any specific thing that you are trying to work through, that you're trying to shift and adjust to all of these changes. These are free, so please reach out. I have open availability on my calendar, and I'll put the link here so that you have access to that and can book right away if that's what you need. So thank you for coming, and I hope that this connection will help you through the coming weeks as we continue to go through even more changes.